1.5 that was allocated in that FY24 budget. And then we rolled over $61,835 from the FY23 budget, which would mean that we would need an additional general fund appropriation of $4,931 to build the station at the $9,016,529 GMP.
We have a general breakdown of, sorry to ask this again, I think we've gone over this before, but just for the public's knowledge, the projects that we've already funded with ARPA funds.
The projects we funded with ARPA funds.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the 6,647,365 is gonna wipe out the remainder other than the 1.5 million that we had allocated for affordable housing. I think we just have $500,000 of that.
Right. And then you had already, well, if it hasn't forever, allocated partial ARPA funds for the design. In the beginning with the SAMA ADW design pre-construction services. Also came out of ARPA funds.
The question?
We can pull the whole presentation here in just a minute with the other ARPA stuff, but just also short about how the
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. On what's not all crowd.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the funding sources that we have for the project?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next steps, town approved total project budget, including guaranteed maximum price from Salmon and remaining under costs, appropriates needed remaining funding and provides authorization to proceed with construction of fire station number 3. Salmon to initiate their community engagement plan, of which Travis just briefly spoke about. We will proceed with the permit review and approval process with the anticipated approval that we are currently forecasting right now of all permits to be in hand by February of 2024. With that becomes an anticipated construction start February 2024. And in talking with Salmon, we are still forecasting a 10-month build schedule. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Austin Balzer, Story Program Management.
All right, do you have any questions? Thank you. Is that Rob?
That's all we have for you, right? At this. You got an answer for the earlier questions?
I have some answers for you from your earlier question. Out of the ARPA funds, we allocated $346,325 for the record management system at the police department. $250,000 for the downtown comprehensive plan that is being finalized right now, and $155,680,000 for fire station number 2 upfit to do some renovations and needed repairs to the restrooms and showers and things in that station.
Then we also have the premium pay that was previously approved for first responders during the pandemic, as well as, of course, affordable housing, $5 million for affordable housing.
Yes, we had $853,388 in premium pay. that was expended out of ARPA funds.
I'd like to ask with the town manager's blessing and put that on our website, it's not there. Our citizens can see what we spent on those funds. I think we were good stewards of that money and spent them and really wise decision about how we spent that.
Absolutely. Maureen, is that already started the page?
Yeah, it's already there. Yeah.
So, but we'll update it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Last chance, any questions, comments, concerns? All right.
So we will come back to you during all the business, regular council meeting, with a request to approve the guaranteed maximum price and to authorize Becky to move ahead. The notice to proceed, Samet, signing of the construction agreement amendment with Samet and the, continuation of Stories Services to be our, owner's rep through the closeout of the project.
So this will probably come up later in our regular meeting, but what are the ramifications if we do not authorize that?
You have the opportunity to, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. So Samet's pricing iteration, those prices were provided on October 31st. And typically subs will give about 30 days to execute that contract. You do meet again in 2 weeks, which would be right within that 30 days. But it is Samet's intent. If you approve this evening, they will lock contractors into their labor and materials pricing starting tomorrow morning.
Mr. Devon,
Yes, excuse me. There was some discussion over a period of time about this community room in the fire station. Has that been unchanged? Is that still
Yeah.
as to its original design?
Yeah, yes, the community room is exactly as you've seen it before.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, the big changes, and these are important, the BMP that Travis mentioned, we were unhappy with the design because it would have discharged to our neighbor's property, and we didn't like that. So a significant increase in price offset by other savings was to pipe that to the street, to the storm drain. The county and ADW and I differ on classification of space in the mezzanines. So we had to change from ship's ladders to fully enclosed and rated stairwells to get from the ground floor to the service areas. But we were doing value engineering until last Wednesday on this project to keep the price within what you've seen before.
okay, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll adjourn until 7 p.m.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to our November 13, 2023 regular meeting of the County Board of Commissioners. I'm Mayor John Higgin. We had a meeting at 5:30 this evening to discuss our new fire station, and that's going to come up later as a night of business. I'd like to start with some introductions. On my left and your right is our Assistant Town Manager, Malia James. Commissioner Renee Garner. Normally sitting next to Renee would be Commissioner Larry Whitley. He had a medical procedure tonight, so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. With Mayor Pro Tem Ken McCool, our Town Manager Becky Hawk, our Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, Commissioner Mark Tefano, Commissioner Gina Hoover, Commissioner John Urban, our Town Clerk Lori Campino, our Planning Director Jay Camp, and our Communications Coordinator Maureen Key. I'd like to ask Commissioner Tefano to lead us in our invocation tonight.
For those that you wish to pray, please do. Our dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Please give us wisdom and discernment, and may the words of our mouth, and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. I pray these things in your glorious name.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic against one nation under God, indivisible, and with justice for all.
All right, before we adopt the agenda, I'll ask the Town Manager if there's any additions, deletions, or movements within the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe Commissioner Tofano has a suggested amendment, and then I have one as well. Commissioner Tofano?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move item 9I from the consent agenda and move it to 11C of new business.
And in addition to that, I would also like to add an item to make it item 16. That would be considered a resolution to hire outside legal counsel.
Okay. With those two changes, we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Okay. Second. Motion by Commissioner Garner, second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimously. Move on to public comment. Anyone who registered in advance will speak first, and after that, anyone in the audience who wishes to speak may do so. Speakers have 5 minutes. Anyone interested in speaking about one of the public hearing items should wait until that item comes up on the agenda. So first up tonight, we have Mr. George Young.
Evening Town Council, citizens of Matthews, name is George Young, 407 Pinecrest Drive, Matthews, North Carolina. Very quickly, I wanted to say congratulations to the mayor and council members and Mr. Leon over here, who is the elect after we sworn in December. Very quickly also, I ran for office. I didn't win. Oh well, means I get to go home. I won't be here till midnight. I'm here to talk about something called the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I served in the military. I made an oath for the Constitution. What does it say? The First Amendment provides that Congress make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise. It protects freedom of speech, the press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. Also want to include, there's a lot of legal court precedents on this. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the interactive portion of a public official's Facebook page is a public forum. So an official cannot block people from it because of the opinions they hold. The case arose after a chair of a local board of supervisors in Virginia, Phyllis Randolph, briefly blocked a critic from her official Facebook page and deleted a comment he made about her colleagues' management of public funds. Number two, New York Times versus Sullivan, 1964. In a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision holding that First Amendment freedom of speech protections limit the ability of public officials to sue for defamation. The case emerged out of a dispute over a full-page advertisement run by supporters of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the New York Times in 1960. The advertisement described civil rights protests in Montgomery, Alabama, lauded Dr. King's leadership and criticized various Southern officials for violating the rights of African Americans. The advertisement contained several factual inaccuracies, which became the basis for a suit for defamation by the Montgomery Police Commissioner. After a jury trial, they found in favor of the plaintiff and a denial of the defendant's motion for a new trial. The Supreme Court of Alabama sustained holding on appeal, stating that the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution does not protect libelous publication. The Supreme Court, in an opinion written by Justice William Brennan, reviewed the matter against the background of profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, wide open, and that may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasant, sharp attacks on government and public officials. You may be wondering why I'm bringing this up. Two different issues. The town of Matthews, Gray Media Group, WBTV plaintiff versus town of Matthews. This is publicly filed in the courthouse. This lawsuit arises from the town of Matthews investigation into use of force by officers within the Matthews Police Department on a citizen in January 2022. Upon WBTV's information belief, a police supervisor choked a man in handcuffs in an MPD station holding area while other officers watched. I'm obviously not going to read the whole complaint because it runs about 40 pages. The town has actually done a filing where they named the officers, by the way. The next issue, there was a flyer that apparently was put out that's ended up on Facebook on an elected official. It states, and I will read it for the record. Please vote Tuesday, November 7th, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and ensure your First Amendment rights. The candidates below will do just that. Commissioner Hoover, Commissioner Capilano, David Gardner, Jonathan Clayton, beyond threat. Then in the bottom it states, Duke Law is reviewing freedom of speech violations by Matthews Town Board and has contacted the town board noting violations. I have no idea what that is. What the elected official said, $300 reward for anyone who can positively identify the person who taped these on mailboxes in Windgrove and the surrounding neighborhoods just before Election Day. That comes off to me very much like intimidation. We don't need that in this town. You as elected officials.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Your time's up.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Mr. Rick Gilbert, would you like your next up?
Good evening. Thanks for your opportunity to speak tonight. This is Rick Gilbert. He's the Executive Director of Home Again Foundation. And I'm Eric Thomas Dizube, the poster child. Do we have the PowerPoint presentation in the clicker?
Clicker should be right in front of you, sir.
It's right here.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's get into it. While we're waiting, I told Rick, I said, I've never talked to a town council before, so I'm a little bit nervous. And he said, don't worry about it, just act like you're giving a weather forecast. So we're good.
Lori, I'll start the timer from now, since we have the snafu with that.
So I'd like to introduce you to the Home Again Foundation. There's no way I can possibly do justice to this organization in 5 minutes. Rick was nice enough to ask me to join the board a couple of months ago. When I learned more about it, I said, please sign me up. So what is the Home Again Foundation all about? Well, before we get into that, I thought what I would do is show you just a couple of headlines that I encountered today when I Googled two words, housing affordability. And the headlines just came rolling out of my computer. You can see the attributions there at the bottom as well, for instance, the U.S. Government Accountability Office. But most of this should not come as a surprise to most of you. The affordable housing crisis is here, and in some cases, it is a record. We're not advancing right now. It's not advancing. There we go. So again, I'm not going to read all of these to you. I'll let you just kind of consume them a little bit. But this one here struck me. 2019, we had a shortage of 7 million affordable homes for low-income renters. You can see that resulted in 37 affordable rental homes for every 100 low-income renter households. In other words, there's 63 people out of every 100 who are left out in the cold when trying to afford a home. So as a result, you can see the list here. We're dealing with eviction, homelessness, financial insecurity, poor academic achievement for children, food insecurity. This one here from Johns Hopkins, another article recently, living with the crisis of affordable housing. So it's all over the map right now. So what about Home Again Foundation? At the moment, a 501c. You'll notice there in the middle it says affordable housing. That is what they're probably best known for. But for me, the secret sauce of this organization is that right there, the sustainable supportive services. This isn't an organization that just rolls into a neighborhood somewhere, picks up a couple of acres of land, throws up a house, figures whoever lives there is fine, goodbye. They have an ongoing program that does help all these people that they are dealing with to succeed and reach their potential. Now, the people at risk, you can see, might surprise you in some cases, police officers, first responders, teachers, and veterans that they're trying to help. This is an organization that has never received one dime of public funding. And on their own, they have already built this community up off Statesville Road. This is their small beginnings community. It is beautiful. The neighbors have come up to Rick and thanked him because they said that this community has actually moved their area forward, not backward, with the people that live there, again, because they are screened. They're responsible, productive citizens in our community that just need a hand up. You'll see that we're not talking about just tiny homes. You know, those tiny homes where you take 3 or 4 steps and you're from the front door to the back door. These are actual 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes that are all renting for about, on average, about $100 a square foot. But this is the part that I really wanted to get to. It's the supportive services. And that is Vicki right there in the middle of the picture. And she is the hero that does all the hard work and the heavy lifting in terms of screening people and then providing these sustained services for these people who are living there to help them reach their potential. Again, they've developed this program called Building Hope, Building Commitment Program. And off to the right there in the lower right, I just want to read the bottom right there where it says, the vision, self-sufficiency, helping individuals identify their potential with the self-sufficiency, the empowerment, education, support, even helping them find employment. All right. Who do they serve? Well, just about everybody from 18 on up. All right. So with that said, how does it work? Very quickly, again, I know I'm flying through this. On the left-hand side, basically what you're seeing there are the commitments and the documents that these residents must sign and must pass in order to even be considered for this. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that the resident then works with a specialist to identify their goals, their options, and assist them with their income, their financial literacy, home ownership. It's a great program. And not only is what they're doing fantastic for the individuals who are in need, but they're also really stopping a problem before it starts in any given community. I mean, we've already seen these tent cities going up around the country in some of the major cities, and some of the problems of Charlotte are now spreading out here into the Matthews area, Union County. And so we would like to stop the problem before it starts and we start seeing people living in the streets. So again, board of directors, Rick Gilbert, there he is, the executive director, his daughter, Rachel, they started it from the ground up. And I said, it is an incredible program. So I think I heard a buzzer go off somewhere. So I squeezed it in. So I appreciate the time very, very much. And I'll only end by saying that we would love some financial support if it's out there. And that would really help us get beyond just this private organization and form a public-private partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Gilbert. I'd like to suggest that maybe you come back and have this added as a regular agenda item, so we don't have to rush through it and discuss it in more detail.
Thank you very much.
Very much like that.
Appreciate you.
All right, do we have anybody else in the room tonight that would like to give a public comment, not on a public hearing, but just general public comment? Morning. You, John. No public comment? Okay. No one else in the audience, and there's no one online? Morning. Morning.
Yeah, this is a written comment from Jason Bender, who writes, congratulations to everyone on your successful election campaigns. Also, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this forum. Several weeks ago, a longtime cyclist died while illegally riding on a public road in broad daylight in our town. This likely could have been avoided if motorists in general were more aware of the laws and would stop looking at their phones while driving. As someone who frequently rides community streets, I have experienced the worst out of a lot of people simply by getting on a bicycle. Many motorists feel that cyclists are not legally allowed to share the roadway or that they are a nuisance. Oftentimes, we are attacked on public roadways by drivers, whether verbally, artistically, or physically. We need to raise awareness. I believe that some more share the road signs in our community, especially where signs that read bike lane ends, or Providence Plantation is a good example. Many motorists think the bike lane ends sign is to alert cyclists their lane has ended and they aren't allowed to ride any further. In reality, the sign is intended to alert the motorists that they will need to share the road. In Charlotte, both signs are typically used one atop of another to alert the motorists that the bike lane ends and sharing the road resumes. Matthews does not have these where the bike lanes end. That is from Jason, the vendor of 204 Denver Lane.
That's the only one you got?
That is, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. There's no other public comments. We'll move on to agenda item number 6. I'll entertain a motion to recess our regular meeting for public hearings and applications to amend the Unified Development Ordinance and land use map in the town of Matthews.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Garner. All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Public hearings will be heard tonight until 10 p.m. If any public hearing has not been opened by then, it'll be continued to our December 11th, 2023 meeting. I'd like to start by asking Jay to introduce our planning board members in attendance.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here on the first row, we have Doug Rose, Lisa Sanchez, our chair, Jim Johnson, Dorsey. On the second row, Jonathan Clayton, Alan Lavner, Chris Sudar, Bob Jackson. And I'm sorry, our youth voice in the third row, Julie Scotland.
I want to remind everyone that you may speak on public hearing items only once during the public hearing. If you wish to speak tonight and the public hearing is continued, you will not be able to speak to the continued public hearing day. Our first item is item 6A, zoning application 2023-782 Rainbow Express Ministries. We changed the zoning classification from R15 to RPSO. Although certain properties being designated as 9910 and 9915 Talbot Court and further identified as tax parcels 227-15202 and 227-15203. This is continued from October 9th. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. The memo before you this evening, just a quick summary of what's occurred this past month. Staff did have a productive meeting with members representing Rainbow Express last Monday. After much discussion, we resolved that the best course of action would be to continue the hearing until January 8th. We are still looking at numerous items, including transportation related concerns, the future occupancy of the homes and several other items that were brought up by both the neighborhood and the board. Staff, we are doing some research and looking into some consulting work on the question about turn lanes and a few of the other safety related issues. So we'll have an update for you all shortly. So staff is running with that item. Also wanted to point out that we could have continued this for a month, but traditionally the outgoing board doesn't have new public hearings in December. So we resolved to recommend moving it to January 8th. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Hoover.
Jay, I'm not sure if it was something you can answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wasn't here at the last meeting, I do have some concerns. I keep hearing friends helping friends, okay, with this. My concern, as if someone could help me understand, I keep hearing, disability and special needs, okay? That will, I don't know, I need more clarity of that.
Right.
Because as a person with disabilities, I can relate with there's a difference between the two. When you have special needs, people like that need more care. But as a person with a disability, I don't need care. I'm fine on my own, so,
Sure.
but yeah, I just need a little bit more definition on the difference between who will actually, who is it disability or special needs, or that they're planning to actually live in this home. Because if you're special needs, you're gonna need more care. You just can't have special friends. You have to have professionals actually taking care of these people. Because I know people with Down syndrome, actually have a dear friend with a son with Down syndrome. I know the care this person needs. So I just need clarity on that, and I don't know if that's a good time to ask this now or wait till the next meeting, but I just need clarity for that.
It's the pleasure of the board if you want to have additional conversation with applicants here. That was part of our conversation, quite frankly, was looking at it. Now, I'm a planner, like I'm not qualified at all to make those determinations, but what we have resolved to do is to continue conversations with Rainbow Express and have our zoning administrator take a look at it through the lens of state statutes and our unified development ordinance. So that's the piece I can answer. If you would like to speak with the applicant, they don't need to. Or we could continue the conversation in January.
I'm happy to wait for the answer for the next meeting. That's fine with me, but I just need clarity of who. Is it gonna be disability, special needs? Then you have disability people with special needs as well. I'm just looking out for the safety of those who will be in that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to,
Thank you.
But I think the applicants have heard your question, Commissioner Hoover, and be prepared to answer that at our next meeting. We'll take this up in January if we so declare to continue it. First, is there anyone that wants to speak on this public hearing, even though it's likely to be continued? Everybody wants to speak tonight. Entertain a motion for continuance to January.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, you have something to read.
There are some comments that were provided that they did ask to be read tonight.
You told me that.
I do just want to check with Mr. Campbell. I have his written comment. I just want to make sure that you do in fact want this to be read tonight, sir. Okay. This first comment is from Paul Campbell of 905 Evian Lane, and he writes, "Dear Commissioners, Mayor, and Planning Board. First, we respect you for all you try to do for our whole community. Please help me understand the following issues. Mrs. Little told us at the meeting on September 13, 2023 at the White House that there is not office in the White House and that the town told her to apply for office. Why office? It has a new developing church, Young Life, pottery making, a resident gathering center, events, and future assembly for businesses. No office. Why place several homes on Talbot as the neighborhood is already struggling to exit and enter safely? Example, corner of Fullwood in Talbot is so dangerous. People are afraid of being rear-ended as they pull onto Talbot. They enter quickly, and as you turn onto Talbot, not only is the crosswalk right there, but the people that are driving to the White House immediately turn left into the driveway, almost causing several accidents as we are exiting our neighborhood. Which brings around another issue. Why is the parking lot in front on the road where we enter our neighborhood and not around to the side or back? Mrs. Little told my wife and myself that the town wanted the parking lot in a different location than the front, but we see on the renderings that it is in the front. Parking on the street is unsafe with the curves and hill on Talbot. We can't see well now, but except to the exit as our other exit is even more dangerous. Adding people crossing to the White House all day and night will certainly add to the danger. Shared driveways will cause worry of getting blocked in, and so will people start parking on the street, causing more issues for Hampton Green. The pictures that my wife sent to the board, which Mr. Urban stated he forwarded to the planning board, show how cars at the White House are more than the amount of parking they are asking for. It also shows they park all over the front yard. Maintenance has been iffy, and as a neighborhood, we have accepted that because we wanted to give them a chance.
We accepted that because we wanted to give them a chance. Recently, however, when they applied for a rezoning, the maintenance has greatly improved. We have asked for the amount of bedrooms with no response. Why is the house so large for 4 people? Who is in charge if there is an issue and there is no supervision? If there aren't enough handicap to rent, who will rent those rooms? I would hope that everyone would truly take a look at what it is like to walk downtown from Hampton Green. It is extremely dangerous to cross on Fullwood, and that people from these homes will also have to cross trade to get to church. Many people in our neighborhood have stopped walking downtown because it is so risky. The Y at the corner, which was put there to keep traffic flowing, is worked for keeping traffic flowing, but has destroyed a walkability to town. Please help us get the answers to so many questions. With so many houses, condos, apartments, with Matthews Glen opening soon and 45 traffic that will be heading down to Fullwood, we don't stand a chance of leaving our neighborhood. We are just a small, kind neighborhood trying to be a part of Matthews, but constantly being excluded from downtown. The next is from Shannon Richards, who writes, "Dear Town Commissioners, I watched the last zoning meeting from home and couldn't help but to notice that speakers who are required to state their name and address are written state these words. How many of them drivers were residents of Matthews, let alone the Hampton Green neighborhood, that people who are not only voters but are directly affected by the zoning proposal? Well, I am. My name is Shannon Richards, and I live at 1108 Gateshead Lane in Matthews, Hampton Green neighborhood. One theme ran true throughout last month's meeting, with a number of town commissioners and the mayor himself proclaiming their affiliations with Rainbow Express Ministries and the general distortion of Hampton Green's real concerns being as a message of not in our backyard, the cards are stacked against. Did any of the town commissioners even drive through Hampton Green since the last meeting to see what we're talking about? I urge each of you to look past your personal bias and hear what's actually being said by the residents of Hampton Green. We have real concerns about the safety of our families if the proposal is allowed. High-density housing, where it's being proposed, will only make an already dangerous intersection more dangerous for not only us, but for our future Rainbow Express neighbors. Yes, I used the word neighbor. That's something town commissioners and the mayor also did hear us say. Every speaker was welcoming of Rainbow Express as long as her concerns are taken seriously. Hampton Green has long been Matthews' forgotten neighborhood. Don't let it be again. Don't pass any rezoning ordinances without also including action plans that address traffic flows of both cars and pedestrians." This next comment is from Steve Cobb and Erica Foley, who writes, "Dear Matthews Council, I attended a meeting on October 9th seeking information about rezoning. As someone who runs a nonprofit, I am sympathetic to other nonprofits. What I heard was a presentation by 2 people who hadn't even come close to doing their homework. I left the meeting at 9:20, and at that point, Ms. Little has said it's just going to be friends living with friends 4 times. This demonstrates a real naivete when discussing people with special needs. The gentleman who gave the presentation was stumped on basic questions like what kind of trees provide the barrier between the property and Evian Lane. The following represents but a few of the issues Rainbow Express is facing. Safety. Fullwood is a high traffic road, particularly during the 90-minute rush hours bookending the weekdays. The crosswalk is right next to the road. Vehicles currently take the turn driving far too fast, and this is especially true for those driving southbound. It's so bad that at least several residents have already had close calls. This begs the question, who's going to take responsibility when the inevitable accident occurs? Legal. On October 9th, 1 councilman and 1 speaker looked up and read the definition of group home. Rainbow Express seems perilously close to circumventing state law. While this may be applicable, 6 different people have mentioned a zoning change on the White House approximately 18 months ago that they've been out of compliance ever since. If this is even partially true, I wonder if we trust them in this matter. Remember, once this happens, there are no takebacks. If 5, 10, or 20 years go by and Rainbow Express decides to move elsewhere, what's to prevent them from renting the houses to recovering drug addicts, making them halfway houses for recently released inmates, or any other less than quality uses? Each of you will be remembered as the ones who allowed this to happen. Environmental. There's already a stormwater runoff problem with Talbot. It seems inconceivable that adding 4 very large houses will not exacerbate the problem. The requirement to be approved by environmental agencies such as soil erosion, water quality, and all could be long and arduous. Matthews Glen. In the 8 years since starting construction, 800 people have moved in. The current construction will accommodate another 200 people. The majority of residents are the 75 to 85 years of age demographic. It's a well-known fact that driving skills erode when someone reaches the age of 70. These 1,000 older adults introduced into such a concentrated area over such a short period of time in and of itself presents an issue for the trade and Fullwood intersection. Location. Since Rainbow Express is connected with Matthews Methodist, it makes more sense to build 3 or 4 houses big enough to accommodate 4 people behind the church. This would provide access to downtown without having to cross 2 major roads. When I was in college, I lived in a 1,500 square foot house with 3 roommates and a 1,650 square foot house with 4 roommates. Why are the houses being built to accommodate such a small number, mini mansion size? Traffic patterns. If Talbot is blocked by construction equipment at any point, people will be upset. There are 2 possible scenarios, either of which will cause an undue burden on the good folks who live here. One, to create a slalom course on Talbot in order to avoid trucks and cars parked on the street, therefore increasing the danger at an already treacherous pullout. The other is even worse, and that would be to force all traffic to exit from white cars. Everyone would be forced to turn right no matter what the destination. If this is the case, the fastest method of turning around is turning right at the ball fields, making a U-turn and taking a left at the light. The obvious danger here is greatly increased traffic driving where children are concentrated. Any parents who have kids playing baseball will be really ticked off if people on this happen. Thank you for your time, attention, and consideration. And the last comment is from Jason Bender, who writes, Jason Bender at 204 Denver Lane, who says, would like to comment on the Hampton, as a citizen of Matthews and Hampton Green, who would like to comment on the rezoning request by Rainbow Express Ministries. Everyone in Hampton Green is aware that Ms. Little and Rainbow Express Ministries are good people. I'd say that is very clear. We, along with any other member of Matthews, would also agree. Yet last meeting, that is all they brought to the table. At face value, REN is a developer. They acquired land, they want to build on it. This developer also wants the board to change the zoning so they can maximize their investments. Then REN intends to become a landlord, charging rent to the occupants. The residents of Hampton Green are respectfully asking our board to look past the things that should have no bearing, such as if the applicant is good, bad, different, ugly, pretty, etc., and look at what the rezoning application is at face value. It's an application to overdevelop land, which will in turn upset hundreds of Matthews residents and voters. Also, a small developer can satisfy their own wishes. To Rainbow Express Ministries, Hampton Green residents are good people too. You mentioned that your ministry would like to integrate into ours. We humbly ask you to withdraw your application to rezone. Simply build by right, and I guarantee you will feel right at home in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight present who would like to make a public comment on this? I am aware that one of the reasons for the continuance is for the Rainbow Express folks to meet again with the residents of Hampton Green, and I hope they will take advantage of that and have further dialogue and explain what your expectations are, what your grievances are. That would be helpful. I don't think a lot of people came to the earlier meeting. They may not have been aware of it, but it'd be good if they could have a good turnout and hear from a lot of the folks in Hampton Green. Now then, do we have a motion to continue?
So moved.
Motion from Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Burbank, any further discussion? To the January 8th, 2024 meeting.
Good by me.
All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Go on to the next zoning application, 2023-784 text amendment from Profit Dixon Partners to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, specifically 155.504.3.c.4 by deleting the section. This is continued from October 9th. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this is for modification of the right-of-way reservation in the entertainment overlay district. So right now, this text that's being talked about, it only realistically applies to a single property in the NT overlay. It would be the Bergman property. To the north of it, that property's already been rezoned and work's begun to kind of go back through that subdivision process. And then to the south is the sportsplex. Right, so the text does require the reservation area of 140 foot width. It also requires the planning of roadways, pedestrian networks, bicycle infrastructure, public transit, and other amenities. So as written, that's a hard 145 feet. So there's no increasing it, there's no decreasing it. It's just kind of fixed. Now, one of the things that we do have in place is conditional zoning. And so with that, we're able to kind of go in and modify things. So what staff is recommending is that really just leave the text in place. That way we're able to go back in and plan for the amenities and everything. But we just either look at removing or modifying that 100-foot separation. And then, if you could scroll down.
Yeah, sorry.
And just for reference, this is the text that we were talking about. And so the staff recommendation would really just be focused on this 140 feet. And that concludes the staff update.
Any questions for Derek? There a desire to hear from the applicant? Mr. Farmer?
Mayor, members of the town board commissioners, members of the planning board, thank you. I don't have much to add. It's just requesting to eliminate the 140, or number 140. Rather than being so prescriptive, allow planning cats and the applicant to work together to figure out, the proper width. That's really the difference. But we're happy answering other questions if they have.
Commissioner Bono?
Yes, is there a minimum?
There's not, but I mean, we're not opposed to that at all. We just want to have some flexibility in working with planning. And we can certainly look at that. I don't have an issue with that at all. So
Yes, I'd like to see that established as well.
be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, does the consensus of the board, we can close the public hearing today and send it to the planning board?
Public.
What's the date of the planning board meeting?
I think it's 28, maybe 28.
Anybody in the audience tonight want to speak in favor or against this text amendment?
George Dunn, 407 Pinecrest Drive, Matthews, North Carolina. I actually don't have a problem with the text amendment. Part of the roots of this problem is that the town planning board, or just planning department, I think put too many restrictions in this particular area and created this. I'm also being consistent with the last time I talked about this. You might want to have a consultant come in and take a look at those, see what the city of Charlotte does. I do also want to say this is part of a larger zoning. This does not mean I approve that. But as far as this text amendment, the only concern I do have is if we're making an actual structural change to this, is this going to affect other developers? Are we opening up a box? And I do not know the answer to that. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak in favor or against the section? Do you have anybody online, Maureen, that's indicated they would speak in favor? Commissioner Garner?
Mr. Carmichael, I have a question for you. If Cat Silverline doesn't work out, which we're all, regretting that I just said that, what happens then?
Well, this is for IPP actually, the right of way that we're talking about, but just generally if the civil line doesn't work out for this piece of property.
No, I mean specifically for this text amendment, for the intent of the text amendment, I guess.
Well, the 140 feet, it applies to IPP. And so in the rezoning that we're working on now, I think it's 135 feet, which would be IPP and the silver line. If the silver line doesn't happen, then that doesn't mean IPP won't happen. And it also would mean that the reservation for the right of way for silver line would go away, and then the property would just be developed without the silver line. But we're hoping that's not what happens.
Okay.
To answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments, we can move this to the planning board at their November 28th meeting and then come back to us for next meeting. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to zoning application 2023-785 tax amendment, Dixon Partners again to amend 155-604.3 in the UDO to decrease the minimum building height in the entertainment district from 24 feet to 15 feet and 12 feet under specific circumstances. Mr. Hallman.
Thank you, Mayor. So the last text amendment, that was for the ENT overlay. I just want to highlight that this is for the ENT base district. So this is a conditional zoning district. So anytime anything comes before the board with the entertainment district category, the board does have final say. So currently, the entertainment district has a minimum height of 24 feet. The applicant's requesting that this be reduced for non-residential buildings that are less than 500 square feet. So a 10 by 50 building, that would be reduced to a minimum of 12 feet. And then buildings between 500 feet and 3,200 square feet would be reduced down to a minimum of 15 square feet. And then for any type of single family homes attached, so townhomes in the area, they would have a minimum height reduced down to 15 feet from that 24 feet. Again, this is a conditional zoning district, or conditional only zoning district. So any future plans that may come in from the board, that height requirement, that is something that you could assign site-specific conditions to in the future. And then staff recommends holding a public hearing and then reporting to the November 28th planning board meeting.
Any questions or comments from the panel? Mr. Crono, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Is the applicant here tonight?
Sir.
Yes, I just wanted to know what was the overriding either construction consideration or economic consideration for asking for this text?
It's really to allow them the request is to go from 24 to 12 feet for a building equal to or less than 500 square feet. Like you can have a Jenny's ice cream or some little jewel box retail. A 24-foot tall building could look odd. At least we think so. And then for buildings, non-residential buildings greater than 500 but less than 3,201 square feet, could be 15 feet, like a standalone Shake Shack or something like that, just to give some flexibility to the board, the planning staff, and the applicant for those types of buildings, in particular in the the common green space in the middle of the district. So that was the thought there, more design and how it would look, functionality, not so much construction cost or construction methods, but just a little Jenny's ice cream that was 800 square feet. It might look odd if it had to be 24 feet in height.
Is there anything, Jay, is there anything currently in the ENT code that prohibits the number of this type of structure?
No, sir.
You might consider that.
Yeah, we definitely can do that, sir. But to restrict the maximum number of buildings that could have that.
Yeah, exactly. Also, this sort of eliminates a residence on top of business, or at your discretion, if you wish to have that type of building. I thought that the original concept that you were proposing had a great deal of residents on top of the businesses.
It does.
Yeah. Is this a attempt to mitigate that or to reduce that requirement?
It is not.
Okay.
And once again, since you're in the ENT, it would be a conditional rezoning, so you see the plan. But if you don't have the text amendment, then there's not the flexibility to make those sort of unique proposals. That was just the thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garner.
Jay, do you remember why there was that was originally written into the UDO to have a minimum height of 24 and
So I can try to give you a window into Kathy Evers, our former planning director's mind. Probably one, to eliminate like strip mall style buildings that are typically lower in height and have a different height to width ratio. Two, just looking for additional density, since this was projected to be probably one of, if not the highest density development within Matthews, highest tax base. The idea that we wanted to push development up, and people paying for larger structures than just one. But probably the first explanation would be my guess. That, we wanted to move more vertically with development.
Thank you.
Kind of bolster Mr. Carmichael's comment, some of you may be familiar, I believe it's in Conway, South Carolina, maybe Myrtle Beach, but there's some hamburger joints that are like 800 square feet and they're like 30 feet tall, and they do look extremely, it's like a Lego, something a child builds or something, they don't look right. You build a structure that small and that tall. Are there any other questions or comments? Anybody in the audience tonight want to speak in favor or against this from the planning board? All right, by consensus of the board, we will close this public hearing and move it to the November 28th planning board meeting and then come back to us on December 11th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you.
Move on to item D, zoning application 2023-786 Greer to change the zoning classification from R20 to HEC CD on that certain property designated as 131 West Charles Street, further designated as tax parcel 193-262-8.
Thank you, Mayor. We're waiting on get that pulled up. So we are going to go ahead and ask for continuation on this. When the mailings were sent out for the community meeting, there was an issue with one of the mailings that was sent to, wasn't sent to the PO box, it was sent to the address that was returned. So the applicant is looking at hosting a new community meeting to fulfill our application requirements. And then we do still have a few outstanding issues that we're kind of working through with staff about parking and public improvements around the site. So this time we're just requesting a continuation to the January 8th meeting, 2024.
Just gonna make a motion to continue this to the January 8th, 2024.
I'll second that.
So we can continue this to January 8th or December 11th. Okay. All right, who made the motion? Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second. Commissioner Garner, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Go to item E, zoning application 2023-788, text amendment to amend 155-506.1 on UDO for signage on vehicles associated with business. Ms. Bennett.
Yes, good evening. This is a question that came up earlier this year. The board requested staff look at the regulations. Basically, it wasn't clear whether we allowed signage on vehicles in a home-based business. And looking through the ordinance, again, it wasn't really clear. You referred to a couple of different sections of the ordinance. And it looks as though signage is allowed, but wanted to just make it clear what the ordinance says really right now is that, can you move up to the to say, rather than referring to another section, to say that it's only passenger vehicles or one mid-range commercial vehicle defined in 155-103C. If you look at the definition, it actually says that those vehicles may have signs on them. And again, that's a little bit part of the confusion to have to look through the definition of it. I want to make it clearer to say that signage would be allowed and to also specify where the vehicle can be parked, which is what you would find in 155-607-1C14F. What I did add, that's not currently in the ordinance, is that the vehicle may display signage, but the signage can't project beyond the roof, hood, or trunk of the vehicle. So what it would be is just, you know, you see a vehicle with maybe like a Duke Power sign on the side, and not having a big sign stuck on the side that really is just a building that they're parking in their yard. So again, this clarifies that. We may need to clarify a little bit further. Jay pointed out that saying that they're not can't be parked in the required front setback means that they couldn't be parked at the end of the driveway either. So we might need to clarify that they can be parked anywhere in the driveway. Which is, what we're trying to do is stop them from parking in the front yard and just parking a car there or a vehicle there that becomes a sign. A permanent sign.
Well, I'm sorry, there is an intention to allow them to be parked, not.
Basically not in the yard, but in the driveway.
Okay, that's what it said.
No, it says it can't be parked in the front setback and part of the driveway is in the front setback. So
That
I want to
was part
further
of
clarify that.
the complaints that we got was people didn't have any place else to park.
Right.
So,
So yes, they will clarify that it can be in the driveway, just not in the front yard,
Can't have a.
just park there as a sign. Right.
Commissioner Spaulding.
Yes, a gray area is when does a vehicle signage become permanent signage? And let me tell you why I'm asking that question. There's numerous situations where businesses will park a vehicle in a parking lot or something of that nature for extended periods of time. Months, and if not weeks. So at what point, and this is obviously a topic of discussion, is when does that mobile sign become a permanent sign and therefore fall under the UDO requirements for a permanent sign? So difficult question to answer, but one that I think needs to be addressed if we're going to be making this text.
Kind of answer part of that, since it's a home-based business, the vehicle can be parked there at any time because it's part of it. I mean, it's somebody who's working there or it's their home-based business. I think we're trying to get away from that by saying that it can't extend beyond the vehicle itself. So it's got to be a smaller.
Right, if the homeowner wishes to permanently park their vehicle in the driveway, not move it, then that's my question, and that happens.
Sure.
So at that point, it becomes something that I think should be considered under the signage parameters of the UDO for a residential community.
And we can discuss that further.
It's a good point.
Commissioner Carter.
Would that then become an abandoned vehicle subject to, perks?
Except if it's registered and working, it wouldn't be an abandoned vehicle.
I think if you can start it up and drive it.
Right.
Wait, I'm sorry, that was, but also you have scratched out business.
Yes, so the business have to come back. That's right, thank you.
I just don't see why someone would have a registered vehicle to sit there. I don't see any benefit for the business under doing this. Why would you pay for the registration of the vehicle and park it there as a sign? That's kind of absurd to me. All right, what's the will of the board? We can close the public hearing or continue it to December 11th.
You're just talking about the fact that staff's gonna go back and continue to refine. So that's fine by me.
All right, you are in favor of continuing this, is that?
No, I don't do anything. They're going to continue to refine it. So
With the planning, yes. Anybody in the audience have an opinion about this amendment? Either favor or against, Howard?
Just a question, we still applying to apartment building too, or just residential homes are thing?
We are thinking, just two things for you. One, is this applying to apartment buildings? If we bring a home-based building out of an apartment and parking in the parking lot, which is different than a driveway. And you mentioned this, we talk about registered vehicles versus unregistered vehicles. Is there anything to prevent someone from having a non-operating vehicle parked in the driveway with the signage? So it's a vehicle, but becomes a term, just question for you.
I believe in that case, that's when it becomes a code enforcement issue. If it's a non-working vehicle, it's just parked there, so that would be dealt with in a different way. The apartments, I assume that, and we can talk about this further, but I assume that if they have a home-based business and an apartment, they can park in parking lot.
That was just a question, because everything here is based on kind of basically driveway.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. the apartment sounds almost more like it could be advertised. You know, if you have a big parking lot and you park out next to the road with your signage. That is a good point, something to consider.
Maybe I got a quick question too. Can they designate a parking space in a different area in front of their house? Like if they went ahead and poured some concrete, so they had a sign right in front of their house, which is what you're trying to avoid, I think. Does that qualify as a driveway?
What our ordinance currently says, that language came straight from another part of the ordinance on a clearly delineated parking pad or driveway. So yes, at this point, I believe they could do a parking pad.
They could literally park it anywhere there.
As long as they have a parking pad, and that's something that we can look at as well.
I think, there's lots of unintended consequences by completely forbidding this and then allowing it. There's also unintended consequences. So planning board, you have a good job for you.
Get ready.
Yeah, good conversation, good questions you brought up. Anyone else have any thoughts on this tonight? Then we will close this then, and we heard about the planning board for the 28th meeting and come back to us on December 11th. I understand the next two zoning items this evening, F and G, need to be re-advertised. Jay, do you want to address that briefly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our town attorney pointed out that we had an incorrect reference there listed for some of these zoning motions, and that we need to go back out to advertisement, clean that up, and then we'll have the hearing on a very busy night on January 8th.
Okay, so for item F, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to January 8th.
I'll make a motion that we continue items F and G to January 8th. I'll make a motion that item F be continued to January 8th, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Garner. Any discussion? All in favor? Pass unanimously.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that item G be continued to the public hearing on January 8th, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Garner. All in favor? Unanimously. I entertain a motion to reconvene our regular meeting.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Urban. All in favor? We'll stand back in our regular meeting, and we'll go on to item 8, planning and development business. We'll start with the planning board report from the chair, Jim Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, town staff. Jim Johnson was absent last meeting, so I'm gonna stand in his stead here and hopefully do a halfway competent job for what he would have done. Our meeting of October 24th, we had two matters. Most of the time was spent with the Midfield Station project, which is zoning application 2022-759, which was to change the zoning classification for R15 to ENT on that certain 66.85 acre site south of Matthews Mingo Road and north of the Sportsplex, seeking mixed-use development consisting of multifamily units, single-family attached units, and non-residential units, and being further designated as tax parcels 215-081-13 and 215-081-33. The planning board spent a lot of time on this, and there was concern over some missing details and lack of certain what they thought were important technical aspects. There was also some statement by the developer that there were two text amendments that had to go forward, or the project itself wasn't going to happen, and they had not yet been heard. In other words, this came to us before the text amendments had had public hearing or otherwise. Concerns were, among other things, were an incomplete transportation impact analysis, no stormwater management plans. While the developers stated they were committed to some affordable housing, there were no details whatsoever in terms of AMR or percentage or number of units, anything else. And of course, the cats issue, which leaves it up in the air as to when, where and when the light rail line would be placed. The planning board did, by vote of 4-2, suggest recommending the approval subject to a number of conditions. I'm going to go through them. There are a lot of them. First, the conditional notes appeared to indicate that there would not need to be future architectural review of some role of this project. And the board felt that that was a mistake, that the architectural review provisions should be kept in full and in force. Obviously, the completion of the TIA, which is very important for this area. An approval of a PCO concept plan and incorporation of stormwater facilities into the existing plan. That seemed to be very much amorphous, at least to most of the board. Obviously, reaching and implementing and agreeing caps on necessary language to protect the implementation of the light rail. And I know there is some dispute as to exactly where on the project the light rail will go. There was concern about the southern extension of Boykin Place not being laid out or not occurring. And they wanted some of that to be in place before some of the building permits were issued, especially those that were in the area of that what should be the southern extension. Staff was concerned about variance from block lengths and public improvement variances from the limited extension of Independent Point Parkway. And the board suggested that that be resolved or at least somewhat clarified before we go forward. There was some concern that the townhomes, which I believe are the area they're going to be adjacent to Crestdale, be fleshed out a little bit more and some green space be added down at that part of the project. There was also some talk about suggesting that there be additional screening between the townhomes and the existing Crestdale neighborhood. There was also, and I mentioned before, we felt there should be some affordable housing parameters set in this project before it be allowed to go forward. The board did find the request was consistent with the family entertainment small area plan by providing new mixed-use development in the area. It was found that the rezoning was reasonable because it helped to further implement the vision and goals of the area. That was passed by a vote of 4-2. Mr. Clayton and I dissented basically because we felt the project was just did not have enough details to move forward. That was not a reflection on the validity of the project itself. The second matter we dealt with was an administrative amendment for Paces Point, which was a request to allow placement of a sign in a conditional district located at 10560 Paces Avenue and further being designated as tax parcel 193-292-03. This was, I believe, a replacement of the existing signs with new signage that, as we explained to us, were to be backlit. In other words, the lighting would be behind the sign. Two concerns there. One is there are many water main access and easement points in that area, just to make sure that none of this occurs in that area. And the other concern was because these signs are going to be backlit, pointing out into the intersection with traffic, that they not be a distraction or impede traffic or driver visibility. So it was felt that the amendment was consistent with the land use plan because it encouraged protection and rehabilitation of viable neighborhoods to ensure their continued existence as a major housing resource by allowing the signage to be replaced and, quite frankly, the property to be more easily found. And it was reasonable in that the proposed zoning change did not significantly impact the intent of the original rezoning. And those were the two matters that were heard at that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ladner. Once again, can tell by the amount of detail you got into that you guys have tough job. We really appreciate you guys for doing this stuff for us. Are there any questions for Mr. Ladner before we move on? Thank you. First item tonight is zoning application 2022-759 Midfield Station. Change the zoning classification from R15 to EMP on that certain 66.85 acre site south of Matthews Midhill Road north of the Sportsplex, seeking mixed-use development consisting of multi-family units, single family attached units and non-residential uses and being further designated as tax parcels 21508-113 and 21508-133.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So at the time that the memos were due, staff had not received any type of updates, regarding the reviews. For the TIA stormwater concept plan, civil line alignment, and any of the feedback from the planning board. And then as Howie noted, there were two text amendments that we just heard in the public hearing. So those are related to this rezoning. Those were continued the previous or last month because of the 10 p.m. cutoff. So that's why things weren't exactly synced up. So just allow those to get called back up and then allow the applicant more time to provide any feedback or comments that the planning board had and the staff had, requesting a deferral until December 11th.
I'll make a motion that we continue this to the December 11th, 2023 board meeting.
To continue to defer. Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Garner. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Next item, administrative amendment, Farley Matthews mixed use. This is continued from October 9th.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quick refresher. So this is for the northern site, just above the rezoning we previously talked about. So this is the Raleigh Apartments. It's really originally approved back in 2017. The applicant's requesting an amendment so that we can go back and correct or I guess modify the IPP alignment that was previously approved. And then to go ahead and make planning for the future light rail alignment through the corridor as well. Again, this is tied back in with the previous rezoning that we just heard. At this time, there are no updates. Staff has not been updated, so we are recommending deferral decision on the administrative amendment to December 11th or continuation.
Be another continuation.
I'll make a motion to continue this till December 11th, 2023 board meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Garner. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Move on to item D, site plan elevation approval, Raleigh Matthews use building number 15. This also is continued.
So this is not a continuation of deferral that staff's recommending. So we just mentioned the Raleigh was part of the rezoning that took place back in 2017. So as part of that, Raleigh was envisioned as phase 1, and so now we're coming up with phase 2 development. Previously, the board had taken action on one of the other buildings, and so we're going back to building 15. This is up by the primary entrance of Raleigh, the corner of Matthews Hill Road. This site on the property right now. So here's the primary driveway, and then here's current IPP as well as the future IPP. The Independence Park. So last year or last September 2022, the board had previously made an approval. The applicant had proposed townhomes. So the board's expressed a lot of desire for commercial in the area. So the applicants actually come back and they have proposed a vertical mixed use building. When this item was previously heard, was commented with some updates to the architectural elevations were desired. So they've come back with updated elevations. So this
You want the site plan or the elevation?
Oh, just the site plan for a second.
Okay.
So just quick recap, the building would be located in the corner of the driveway against Matthews Hill Road. There's one modification. So right now they're showing a two-way driveway. They are going to propose a single direction driveway. There is a driveway at the, I believe it's a veterinary clinic next door. We do have driveway separation requirements. So that will be a part of it. Jeff, you scroll down. And then these are the new elevations that are being proposed. So this elevation, this is the view from Matthews Mint Hill Road. This would be the view from the current driveway entrance, Surrey Green. To be the rear of the property, so you'd be looking, if you were standing in front of one of the apartment buildings, you could back up at the building, this would be the view. And then this would be the view of the building, standing in the proposed parking lot. Or if you were coming down Matthews Mint Hill Road from 74, this is the view that you can see. Back to the south of it.
Do you want that updated site plan?
Yeah, we can show that. We do have a copy of this updated site plan. We just received that today.
Actually, sorry.
But yeah, so it just really incorporates that driveway narrowing down to a single direction. Now as part of that, so we haven't gone through and reviewed everything. So we did draft a recommended motion if you're looking to approve tonight, just to kind of incorporate some things like just noting that during permitting that staff would be able to deny it based off of any if it doesn't meet the UDO requirements or any driveway requirements or anything else. Jay, that's in that form.
Okay.
That concludes
Do you know if all the windows shown in the elevations are actual real windows or they're faux ones? I don't know what you call them.
Standard.
Yeah, are they real?
The applicant is here, so.
Hey.
Good evening. Thank you all for your time. Yes, Mayor, they are real windows.
Mr. Spock?
Yes, do you happen to have renderings of building 2 or 4 so we can compare that against what building 15 is going to look like?
I do not have renderings with me. Those are actually built today. That's the Briley community.
Yes, I know.
I can pull them out.
Wondering the consistency in the appearance between the existing buildings and the one you're putting up.
Yeah, we were extremely thoughtful in how we planned out our architectural elevations and tried to be really cognizant of complementing everything that's going on in the Briley facades. If you'll recall, there's a few different brick types and a lot of different materials and uses. So building 15 will be a nice complementary sister building to Briley. It won't look exactly like any of the buildings out there, but they will flow very well together. The goal is to overall, for this development and then hopefully for Midfield Station to the south, that we have a comprehensive, singular feeling of a master plan community.
So this building is going to be totally residential?
No, sir. There's 2,400 square feet of commercial space that fronts Matthews Mint Hill Road.
And can you point that out to me, please?
If you see the storefront windows at the ground floor, yeah, Jay's got his cursor on it right there.
And what's the total footprint of that particular building in square feet?
So that building overall is going to be roughly 20,000 square feet. It's 38 units and then 2,400 square feet of commercial space.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes. Apologies. I'm Ashley Peterson. I'm a partner with Profitics and Partners.
Mr. Urban?
So Ashley, we met talking about adding the awnings, which you did to give more of that pedestrian feel, retail look, couldn't quite tell what it was. So I have a couple of questions, and you may have to dial something up for me, but I want to know where the signage is going, because you've kind of limited yourself to where the signage bands may be, so I don't know how you're applying it. I don't know if you're applying awnings, trees above the awnings, or their piers. That's question number one. And then the next one, which I think is really, really important for building this nature, because it's mixed use, is what's your lighting approach at retail level?
I don't see references to sconces, I don't see any references to, how the signage lighting's done, whether it's an old time hook light, or it's indirect lighting or backlit. The same way is there's no, entry lighting into doorways, so, I mean, I don't know if it's under the canopy or anything like that. I think the point is if you're trying to make this an inviting retail building, there's those sort of pedestrian level components that are missing. Now, I can leave it up to trucking company to figure out, but it would be nice to sort of have some kind of idea as to where things go, because I think if you put signage in here, even as placeholders, it would, the sound would begin to read slightly different.
Yeah, and I hear you, Commissioner, appreciate that feedback. As you'll see, we've got a little pin mounted signage right above that canopy that'll be fixed. But to your point, we also have a really fantastic monument sign that's out there currently. So we plan to have some sort of signage on that Briley monument sign that bifurcates Surrey Lane when you're driving through there. We will most likely have some other additional signage. I know that you will have a pretty robust signage ordinance. But that could be something that we could bring back in front of you once we have our signage plan really mapped out. Currently, we just plan to have some right above this canopy here. And then to your second point about illumination, absolutely want to ensure that it feels really safe and welcome and inviting. But we don't want to light it up like a Christmas tree. So we want to have sconces that, when you drive around Briley in the evening, similar to that, really echoing the up-down sconces around the front door, trying to utilize those illuminated columns that are out there currently along Matthews Mint Hill Road as well. We have a pretty large retaining wall that's going to be just in front of this building. We have a lot of grade that's occurring where this site is. So being able to incorporate some sort of lighting elements on that wall will also help to enhance and draw your eye towards that front door.
But I don't see that.
You're right. They're not drawn on there.
You got the top pictures on. We do really well. And maybe if that somehow can come back as part of the sign package.
Yeah.
Fine, but I just think that, this is one of the few mixed-use buildings we're talking about. And the idea of ideating between what is retail versus residential needs to be very important. If you bring on the light to the facade, because right now it's very monochromatic, which is fine, but that retailer is going to want to look somehow distinguished. And I'm going to see how they're doing that. I'm assuming sort of non-secular is the reason that curb cut came into play is because you want to make sure that retailer was supported.
Absolutely.
So they didn't drive in Surrey and have to come around the corner.
Exactly. Which, as you are very well aware, that's the death to retail. If people can't access it, or if it's a pain to get to, they won't come. And so we've been working with Ascent as our retail partners overall in this entire community. And that was something that they were very specific that if they didn't have the access point there, that they would never be able to have someone come in there. And as we all know, that's the last thing we want to happen in this community is to have any sort of dark boxes. So we feel that vehicular circulation is of paramount importance to be able to have a functioning retailer in there.
Thank you.
Mr. Urban, are you suggesting that we can do that?
Well, I mean, if by December, if they could sort of illuminate on the sconces and the lighting and signage and kind of get that nailed down a little better.
Yeah.
And that would be much more helpful to me. Then I think you'd have a decent game plan. Right now, I don't see it. So.
Commissioner Urban, would it be possible for us to bring the elevations back and highlighting those areas and then independently get site plan approval this evening? Is that an option?
Can we split this apart?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll buy that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm assuming you're doing this.
So it.
Well, this says review updated building application, it's not. Oh, wow, that really didn't sound well. Okay, so let's just adapt this a little bit. So motion to approve the site plan for building 15 and Briley phase 2 is shown with final approval subject, site plan meeting the requirements of any right, oh my God, Jen, related ordinances and standards included but not limited to driveway space, dimensions, parking lot layouts, flow of traffic, turn lane improvements, stormwater best management practices, most construction control ordinance requirements, downstream flow analysis, bicycle and pedestrian amenities, or elements and tree ordinance and protections. Deep breath. And this, and otherwise we'll do building relations in December. Motion from Commissioner Urban, do we have a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, shall pass unanimously.
Thank you all. Appreciate you taking the time for all of our Prophet Dixon items this evening.
I know that you haven't gotten into what sort of retail will go there, but boy, a neighborhood bakery would be great.
That's a hope. That's a hope.
That'd be awesome. And I think very successful. Moving on to.
Was this one right?
Zoning application 2023-776.
This was the one we were changing.
Change zoning classification 120 to B1 CD, and that's for property designated as 2025 Matthews Hill Road, and further designated as tax parcel 193-311-14. Some of our astute observers may know that we discussed this in a previous meeting, but it didn't pass or was not denied, and two commissioners can bring it back, and I believe this was Commissioner Urban and Commissioner Whitley. Requested the item be brought back for reconsideration, so we'll do that by Mr. Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the board. Yes, so we've talked about this a bunch, and there's been some adjustments that have been made to the site plan based on staff and council comments. I'd like to just briefly share those with you this evening. One is a reconfigured building design and parking envelope. They have been the building's been pushed back a little bit on the site. We moved the stormwater retention system underground, so it is as opposed to a above ground wet or dry system. It's now underground. And they have reduced the amount of grading that must take place on site and preserve substantially more existing trees. There's an additional buffer in between the building and the right of way. And something that we've talked about quite a bit as before is new 10-foot sidewalks and 8-foot planting strips around the entire frontage of the site. Really, the only outstanding issue in this project is agreement on extending a 10-foot sidewalk and 8-foot planting strip along the frontage of Matthews Mid Hill Road to fill a sidewalk gap that's approximately 367 feet. This is to the north of the site, in front of the Bellicera office buildings. Public Works and Planning staff support the connecting of properties with infill sidewalks as it results in better pedestrian connectivity and mobility, which is a townwide initiative. We are recommending approval of the zoning application 2023-776. Zoning change from R20 to B1. And I know there's some other outstanding questions that the board may have, and we've been working with the applicant who is here this evening to address any additional concerns.
I have a feeling Commissioner Urban has some additional concerns.
Bingo. Well, Rob and I have been talking about these, and the petitioner contacted me right in the throes of the election cycle, I think the last week or so. That was before time, obviously, but let's talk through the things that I discovered and you kind of were in concurrence with. So starting one with the protected buffer, that's the primary one out of the street edge. And I had mentioned to you today that the way it was worded, the way they worded it was that they were going to put it back and touch it actually because of the sidewalk. Now I can understand modifying that buffer because of the sidewalk, but the wording says HO over the highway overlay protected buffer yard landscaping and blah, blah, composed of one plant unit for every 40-foot fraction thereof. Combination of both existing trees of required protected size. So the way I read that is that technically, without them limiting that it's just because they're attacking the sidewalk, they could go into that protected buffer and thin out everything except for one tree per 40 foot. That is not my idea of buffer. Right. So we need to get that rectified, meaning if you're putting a sidewalk in there, you're affecting the sidewalk only. But the rest of the buffer does not get affected with that. That's item number one. Then we move over the yellow line, which is sort of the mid market buffer. And then there was this buffer that they talked about that they were adding. but there was no information on this buffer they were adding. So they could plant one tree per 200, 100, don't have to plant anything, plant some shrubs. So again, I felt like I was losing my front buffer, I was not getting anything for the rear buffer, not aspect of it. So that's my two biggest concerns. And then the discussion was that staff has asked for the extension of the sidewalk. Now, I know the first reaction of the petitioner is, well, it's not on my property and I can't make the numbers work, blah, blah, blah. But in the same vein, if, and it's probably a Susan conversation, she may be cringing in her seat, but if the overall multi-use sidewalk is reduced a little bit overall, we do not pay Rob Peter to pay Paul to get some from all that 367 linear feet of sidewalk done. Because I think what we're missing here is there is an opportunity to go from this particular property all the way around and circumnavigate that entire block and have connectivity to the shopping center, to Sarah, to Bainbridge, et cetera, et cetera. If we don't complete the sidewalk, we could be having a missing link for upwards of 30 or 40 more years until Belisara or somebody redevelops. Correct? So those are my three major things that once I look at this again a little closer, the wording just didn't pass.
Mr. Costco, would you like to address those? Before you start, Susan, do you want to add anything? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. My name is Nick Tosco with Pointer School. It's good to be with you again this evening. I have a quick presentation that I think addresses some of the questions that Commissioner Urban has, and hopefully it does, but I'm happy to further elaborate on it. And also just wanted, again, we have the full team here. We have our architect, Carlos Leonardo, our site designer, Alex Quessenberry, and our transportation engineer, Randy Goddard, here as well. I represent RES at LLC, which is Rodney Almeida. He's here as well for you. So this is the redesign site plan that we submitted, and this goes back. We filed this on March 1st this year, and so for 10 months now we've been working tirelessly to try and find the way to make this site work in a way that fully complies with the ordinances and addresses all the concerns of the staff and the commissioners. I will also add real quickly that we held 2 community meetings. As I expressed before, there is no opposition from any neighbors or anyone, and everyone's pretty excited about this project. So but we heard loud and clear the concerns of the commissioners and staff from the last meeting, and so we completely redesigned the site. We didn't just change a few things around. What you'll see here is that the parking envelope and the building have been completely redesigned and reconfigured. So the big change was that we redesigned the parking lot and the stormwater detention, as Rob said, in order to move that underground so that we're having less grading, less built upon area. We're now at about 57% built upon area. I mean, projects of this size are typically in the 75% built upon area. So we've significantly reduced that. We have the big change that we heard from Commissioner Urban is that we moved the building away from the intersection now. So now you have anywhere from 65 to 75 feet, or I'm sorry, 77 feet from the right of way, as before. And so what that allowed us to do is moving the parking envelope and the building up into the site, we were able to create this additional buffer that Commissioner Urban mentioned, shown in blue here. That's anywhere from 30 to 37 feet that is not required. It's just an additional buffer that we've voluntarily agreed to add to the site. And to directly address one of Commissioner Urban's questions about what's going on there. So what we're showing on the site plan, it's maybe a little hard to see unless you zoom in, this green hatched area with green plus marks, all within the blue. That is existing tree save. That is tree save that we are proposing to keep within that buffer. So the hope is that there is no additional plannings that need to happen because we're gonna keep what's happening there. As for the rest, again, because this is not a UDO required ordinance or anything like that, we just didn't want to specify exactly what is going to go in the area that's not in the existing tree safe. It's, you know, the goal is to make it as screened and buffered as possible. And we heard, you know, the concern was also, or that the hope was to make it, you know, existing trees that we keep as much as possible. So that is a few of the several big changes. The other change that I mentioned is the screen area that's hatched. That's all over within the setback and within the protected buffer. And that has allowed us now to keep 0.8 acres of approximately of existing tree safe. And while still doing the 10-foot sidewalk and the 8-foot planting strips. So we're able to now preserve that and keep that, because we also heard that was a major concern and something that we needed to address. I'm now going to address some of the questions that were raised. So I already addressed the additional buffer that we've added. As far as the protected buffer is concerned, Commissioner Urban, I sent you an email. I'm not sure if you got it today, but the note here that you had concerns about, that was taken directly from the UDO. So we've just basically taken the language verbatim from the UDO and inserted it into this protected buffer here. And I mean, again, the applicant has said many times, and I hope we've conveyed this too, that the idea is that we're not grading, you know, we're doing the bare bones grading that we need to do it. We want to keep as many of the trees as possible. We have updated renderings to show you here with the building kind of ghosted behind the trees. And this is what the goal is for it to look like now, with the redesign and reconfigurability, so that you can see, you know, we're going to have the new 10-foot sidewalks and 8-foot planting strips all up and down, but it's going to allow us to still keep the existing and you know, plant new trees all along within this buffer area there. So that's I think that's two of the concerns you address. And just on the third, you know, I wanted to, I said this, I think, to you all before, but wanted to restate, you know, this is an individual who is developing this. To do all these things that we heard were concerns has tripled the cost of this project for him. So he went from before, you know, to now 3 times project to put all the detention underground, to add these additional buffers, to redesign and reconfigure. And so to go off-site and try to extend sidewalk on a property is extremely cost prohibitive for him. And, you know, we had said before, and I'll say it again in case, you know, this is something that the board would like to consider, is that there's existing 5-foot sidewalk along 51 here. And, you know, our original proposal was to keep that all the way throughout the site, and, you know, preserve what's here and then build new 5-foot sidewalk on there. We heard from the board that the major goal was to get to 10 feet, which is a lot more expensive, obviously, and 8-foot planting strips. And so that's what we've kind of committed to do. So we've been very forthright with the staff that, you know, they said this was a, you know, a request or a wish list item that they wanted, but not something that was, you know, dispositive or required. It's not required by the UDO. And so that's just, you know, kind of where we landed on that third item. But I hope that addresses the questions. We appreciate the support from everyone. We feel like we've got a really good redesign project that we want your support for.
Mr. Urban. So I will say it does not address, because it's great that this rezoning case has brought up this issue that's right to from the UDO. So I'm taking issue with it. And Rob is telling me, correct me if I'm wrong, not projecting, that in the protected buffer, the way it's worded, the potential is within that buffer, the way it's worded.
meaning they take it literally, they could thin that protected buffer to the one plant unit per every 40 feet fraction thereof to the trees that require the protected size. Under the tree survey, you tell them, we want you to measure a certain size. Then the ordinance comes back and says, these are the size trees we're going to protect. So anything under that, you can take out. And so basically that unprotected buffer becomes unprotected because now you don't even take it out. And so that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't bode well. We need to be looking at our ordinance because we've been talking about this with the tree saving. So that's item number one. So item number two is let's go back to your additional buffer. You didn't answer me as to what's in your additional buffer. Now let's just put that plan up, please, of that floor plan, site plan. And you know how much I give a pass to developers. I mean, I just let them walk through the right of the town. So when you build that building, I gotta dig footings and foundations, and I gotta have a lot of easement around that building, probably 10, 15 feet away from that building to lay my batter boards, to get excavating equipment in there or whatever. So your additional buffer of existing trees you're gonna save are gone. So I wanna know what you're gonna plant in that additional buffer. I don't know what you, I did mistake and not have the last elements architectural standards are woefully thin. I think it's one sentence where we normally have a good paragraph or two of things, but I'm concerned because it's pretty pictures. I get it, but I really think at the end of the day, we're going to get phone calls as to what did you do to that buffer? And I'm not about to give it up. It's a very nice streetscape through there. The Fountains did an excellent job of creating and preserving their buffers. And I don't want to see that hindered here. We can debate the sidewalk issue, but I'm very, very concerned the nomenclature is such that we're going to have an incident where it's going to get thinned out and we're on a very good level. Mr. Urban, can you suggest some alternative language?
Yeah.
Well, I think I would look.
Sorry, you need to move.
I would look at the Jay and staff maybe that overlay, that first band, that red band there is that you don't touch anything except what has to be dealt with sidewalks. And an appropriate easement from that standpoint. And I think that needs to be negotiated with Susan and staff because you may get a contractor saying, well, I need 15 feet on the other side of that sidewalk to make this happen. And next thing you know, we're losing even more trees. That's running over there. This new proposed buffer, I think we have enough language in our ordinances that when we buffer up against another type of use, residential, commercial, where it's like one mature tree every X, 10 shrubs per X, that kind of thing. That's what I want to see from that aspect of it. I don't want to say that we're going to have an additional buffer here and not something what it is. I'm curious to what the other elected officials feel about the sidewalk that's not part of this site and requirement to build it. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I kind of concur with Commissioner Urban's concern is that's going to be a sidewalk gap for the next 30 or 40 years. It's going to be up to the town or the next person to build around there and pony up the money to do it. I think it's an opportunity to fill a gap and deliver on promises that we've made to the town that we're going to build sidewalk gaps and make this area more walkable. For a time, I lived at the whatever the apartment complex was, John, and what's calling the Matthew Square Apartments. And that area, if you come towards the road, is just not walkable. I mean, you just cannot walk it. So I think you know, they need to build the sidewalk. I'm okay if the sidewalk is a little bit thinner, like John Urban said, instead of being 10 feet all the way around, maybe compromise, make it smaller and fill the gap. I think that's better than nothing. I concur. I also concur that I think, I'm just looking at Google Maps in the fall, and you can already see right through those trees. There's not going to be much buffer there. You're going to see right through that building, even with the trees that are already there. So
I think you overlaid the tree survey, which I got from Rob today. Was a technical issue with the big printer, but the tree survey, where they're talking about preserving a lot of trees, there aren't a lot of trees there. The concentration of trees are up in that upper right hand corner there, and it kind of a little tight around the corner, but
it thins out pretty dramatically, so.
It doesn't seem like there's trees there, because once you get past that first layer, that corner, there's nothing. And you see right through, I mean, I'm looking,
You're dealing with pines, and so there's a big clear story underneath the pines, and then you just scatter those and things like that.
so I don't think you're gonna be very shielded. I think people who are driving here are gonna see that building.
Okay, Commissioner Urban, you and I spoke before this meeting started tonight about the possibility of narrowing the sidewalk. Are you talking about the entire length or?
I mean, I'd like to see some kind of potential compromise here. I think the 10 foot's great because it provides safety, but in the same vein, to have that connection and to be able to have that continuity all the way around, allows people, the fellows there to do their 1.5 mile walk. It allows people in this office park to go, you know, out towards the shopping center where Americana and Piccadilly's are, et cetera. So, but I think Commissioner Munter has hand raised.
Commissioner Garner?
I think Susan knew, and I was gonna ask to hear what she had to say.
Good evening, commissioners. Yes, I'm getting so good at reading minds. I did want to crunch some numbers before I made a comment, so I appreciate that additional time. I do want to direct your attention to this sidewalk matrix that Dana and I brought to you. Gosh, it's been maybe a year now, where we expressed a vision to have 10-foot side path along both sides of NC 51. And you were very, very supportive of that. So when we talk about narrowing the sidewalk, that would be for the Matthews Mint Hill Road portion only. Our recommendation is to keep that 10-foot side path along 51 because of the higher speeds and the nature of that road and how difficult it is to cross. If you're on your bicycle or pedestrians, let's keep the wider sidewalks on both sides of 51. So when we're looking at Matthews Mint Hill Road only across that frontage, it's about 450 feet on the section that they're showing there. I'm sure there's a point here. So it's this section only. So a 10-foot sidewalk across, these are approximate numbers, 450 feet of frontage is about 4,500 square feet of walkable surface there. The ordinance, or sorry, the matrix says on this street type of Matthews Mint Hill Road, we would want a side path on one side and a sidewalk on the other side because there is better block spacing and more opportunities for crossing. And that the side path would be on the downtown side of the street, which is actually this other side of the street. We would love to have side paths on both sides of all streets in the town of Matthews. That would be amazing. We would have such a great cycling community. But you'll notice here next to Butler High School, that housing development is constructing a 10-foot side path, and that is in compliance with our sidewalk matrix for side path on one side of a thoroughfare. So if we narrow this section down to 6 feet, which is our new minimum sidewalk width, and that extension would be about 400 feet over to the existing sidewalk at Bella Sarah. That's a total length of 850 feet, again from the corner, and then filling this gap all the way going to the existing sidewalk at Bella Sarah. I think you can see it right there. That is 5,100 square feet. So they're offering up 4,500 square feet of a 10-foot sidewalk. But if we narrow all that down to 6 feet, that's 5,100. It's very close. It's a very minimal amount. If you look at Polaris, which is a okay reference to right-of-way width, I mean, it's not survey grade, but we'll notice that this development here, the name is escaping me. Is this also Bella Sarah? So it's this commercial building here. Commercial portion of Bella Sarah, thank you. There's about at least 30 feet here in this lovely graded area. Utilities are all on this page south side of the street. So the water line is on the side of the street. The utility line is on the side of the street. This is a big open area that's graded. So there's plenty of right of way. So it is public right of way. That extension would go through public right of way. So it appears that if it's a 6-foot sidewalk, it could connect in this right of way space that was dedicated by the commercial portion of Bella Sarah. Does that clear up any questions you might have about that sidewalk extension? I'm happy to answer any others.
So you're suggesting they would not have to purchase property?
You know, I didn't look at the grades. It's all kind of flat out there. So it appears that they might be able to, with some creative design, be able to get it in the existing right of way. We'd have to look at the hydraulics. I mean, there's some detailed design that needs to happen, but there seems to be a lot of right, maybe a couple of construction easements, I'm not sure.
You're talking a delta of about 600 square feet of sidewalk.
That's correct.
But I think that's a reasonable compromise, but I do want to recognize that they've made a lot of positive changes in my view. I mean, a lot of positive changes that aren't inexpensive, so I do want to recognize that. I do think we have an opportunity to clean up some of the language to make sure that these trees don't get mowed down. But this is vastly improved from what was presented last month in my view.
And that's fine, let's make a deal, but I mean, you know, I just don't want the buffer get thinned out because of an error in sort of the text that we intended something because I'm trying to. I mean, I'm not even talking about the fact that that parking on the left-hand side there is just gonna have a tree there every 40 feet. There's no shrubbery to block the cars or anything like that, so the buffer basically ends and terminates in this parking field. I'm having to go, I can keep driving this home over and over and over again, but I think we get sidewalk in there, leave that buffer around the predominant section of the building intact except where the sidewalk is affected. And then getting a better description of what that additional buffer is, I think we have something. I just want clarity. I mean, I know petitions say I've been here for 10 months, et cetera, et cetera. I think one of the reasons it was turned down before, or we had a stalemate vote, was we didn't have that clarity. Here's what building plans.
Well, I was going to suggest we've done this with previous developments, so regarding the concern about the capacity of the buffer, that the applicant could bring, once zoning's approved and once it's in permitting or prior to permitting, they could bring a future buffer landscape plan before the Board of Commissioners. We've done that with other projects where they show the areas that are deficient, or they show what the supplemental landscaping will be. They've gotten into further engineering where they can actually indicate that the final location of the sidewalk. To me, that would give us time to focus on that issue. I think it's going to be difficult to get there. You know,
If we can peel that off, because I'd like to see the tree save overlay, because I mean, there's a lot of 8 and 10 inch caliber in there, there was a smatter with some 22 inch. And so, you know, we got some decent trees in there, so I'm a little curious, but yeah, we want to peel that off and the petitioner agree with that sidewalk. I want some more architectural standards. I mean, it just, we have some of that.
So Rob's going to bring up an exhibit that was provided with an architecture. The applicant is comfortable with the future buffer landscape approval. Should the zoning be approved.
Okay.
Well, so we got one of these.
All right. Next is sidewalk then. Okay.
Bear with me here. It is.
I think I saw it on the drive. There you go.
There it is.
You submitted this to Control L.
Okay.
Scrap gold.
Yes.
That's the new trick.
Ooh, that is a nice trick. I like it.
Yes.
I think
So the applicant is prepared to enter these as an exhibit to the petition.
Yes, sir.
I'll read them.
Just hiding the others. And there's 3 pages in different locations on the site.
But, and to be fair, I mean, to be fair to the board, this is the kind of information we're looking for on the onset of our projects. Materiality of information, the tree saving, the open space. The renderings are beautiful from that standpoint, but I couldn't tell if that was ephes, stucco, frosting, you know, what have you. So, okay, so I mean, that's the reality. Vinyl side. So, okay, so if the petitioner is agreeing to add that to his zoning case, I think we can take that off the list from what I can see about the types of products. Was there another sheet of the finished schedule? Additional ones. And good, Rob, if this is done, we're done negotiating this now. Can you send me a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So what are we missing? What's left? Sure.
Mr. Mayor, so I think we've already expressed, as far as the sidewalk is concerned, you know, what our position is on extending offsite.
But to the extent, and I said this before, to the extent that we can preserve that existing 5-foot sidewalk that is there, if that is an option, I think that that could be feasible to then extend, because we are essentially swapping that, if that's an option. The second thing I'll say is that if this is something that the board, feels strongly about, that we would want to defer to work these things out, because these things related to the buffer and these things related to the sidewalk this is all costing a lot more money for Mr. Almeida, and he's got to weigh these different things and to do it together as a package, as opposed to piecemeal.
Okay, just to reiterate, I think Susan's numbers as possible. We're talking about 600
square feet.
600 square feet of additional sidewalk on which we're here.
Susan, where are we laying on the sidewalk at today? That's more of a CJ question. Okay.
I think it's a great suggestion. There's a lot of stuff on the table. I would suggest that we continue this. Mr. Gardner?
Can I make a suggestion about the sidewalk, since we've got to do a 600 square foot difference? If the petitioner would be willing, we talk about doing a payment for sidewalk. Fee in lieu, deposit towards that future sidewalk, so that it's somewhere in the middle, compromise with building it and still doing the six foot on site, and then something towards future sidewalk to fill that gap.
Does that equate to 600 square foot times the cost of the sidewalk? The fee in lieu of? I'm saying is, how is your fee in lieu of determined? Is it 600 square feet of sidewalk that's delta difference, or how's the fee in lieu determined?
It would be the difference of the 8 foot, 6 foot plus the 600. It'd be the cost of the concrete.
I'll disagree. I'm not trying to build it and put it on the onus of us to build it in the future. I mean, again, we're in a world of rising costs, so that there may be nothing when we build it in 5 or 10 years. So my vote is going to be, I strongly believe they need to build a gap, and that's the way.
I mean, I'm willing to approve this project tonight with my buffer, architectural standards, and the sidewalk delta 600 square feet with the 6 foot. I'm not. You're saying the 5 foot. You're saying leave the sidewalk as it is. I think that's a non-starter. I think the way Susan couched it is taking that 10 foot primarily up through there, and then you get around that hook. It downsizes and then goes the rest of the way. But I will tell you, I will vote against it at this stage of the game. So it's a matter of what you want to do.
Do you think we can adequately write all these notes for the buffer and what we're going to say? Tonight.
But the buffer we're taking out of the equation tonight, because Jay is going to bring that back as landscape. So the conversation of planting, the buffers and things of that nature is a separate issue that we don't have to worry about. So I think we're dealing with tonight is, architectural standards are being added to the equation. It's really the sidewalk conversation. That's it.
It's fine, Mr. Mayor. I spoke with Mr. Almeida. He will agree that we'll do 6 feet sidewalk on Matthews Hill Road, and then continue the delta 600 feet. We will submit the additional buffer plan. We originally showed plantings of that additional buffer area, and then with the change is when it went away, and so we've matched the UDO, but we have no issues with that. So we're willing to agree with that to get their approval tonight.
Any motions?
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to recommend approval of zoning application 2023-776 at 2930 Matthews Township Parkway. Changes the zoning from R20 to B1CD. That is consistent with the land use plan because it proposes medical and general office within the Matthews Township Parkway corridor. It's also reasonable that it creates new non-residential uses within Matthews Township Parkway corridor. And here's the caveats. One is, landscape and buffer approval will be done at a later date and brought back for the board.
Yes.
Number one, I don't, that the architectural standards as shown tonight, it is record. Okay, and then number three, the sidewalk that Susan pointed out is that it will be 10 foot shown on the plan when we get to the Mid Hill Matthews. That's correct road we're talking about, that Mid Hill Matthews Road.
Matthews Mill.
We downsize to 6 feet and extend that. The noted foot dimension will be 367. What do we want to just say?
Yeah, the gap from the project site.
So we would, okay, so
Yeah.
the sidewalk, fill the gap, the 6 foot sidewalk.
Mhm.
Connect the bus.
Second. Is that acceptable, Mr. Coster? Yes. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Arvin, second by Member McCool, all in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Good.
Move on to the next agenda, item, the consent agenda, items 9A through H. Remember, I is the we have to do business.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent agenda A through H.
Second.
Motion by Member McCool, second by Commissioner Carter, all in favor?
It's a nice
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Trying to get them. Yeah.
Taking a break.
I didn't even hear it.
guaranteed maximum price for construction of $7,845,526 based on plans and reviews completed through October 31st. Story Program Management has developed an owner cost projection of $1,171,003 for a total project cost of $9,016,529, which is where we a little bit less than we were at in August. Thus far, council has approved contracts and materials totaling $1,007,009 for Station 3. So at this point, we would recommend council authorize a total project budget of $9,016,529. Utilize cash on hand from a variety of sources, including ARPA, CLFRF funds, currently in the general fund balance, funding that's been appropriated in the FY24 capital improvement plan, and that was transferred in the fire department budget from FY23, plus additional general fund dollars to complete the construction and upfit of Station 3. We also recommend that the town continue our relationship with Samet Corp and Story Program Management through the completion of Fire Station 3. We recommend that the council move forward expeditiously. These prices were delivered on October 31st, so it's roughly a 30-day window. And as proposed, the construction is still expected to begin in February 24 and be completed by January 1st, 10 months. We recommend, Teresa's not here, I thought she'd stay. We recommend using $6,647,375 in ARPA funds. Well, $1,295,389 in CIP funding, $61,835 in rollover funding, and add an additional $4,931 from the general fund to round out the total project budget.
Thank you, Chief Kenneberg. And I said at the top of the meeting, we had a pre-meeting before this meeting at 5:30 to discuss these numbers in more detail. Well, if there's not discussion, I was going to make a motion. So,
Commissioner, I just wanted a quick clarification. I guess for Becky or the chief. So, the approved budget of FY 23-24, 1.5 or 1.295 into infrastructure, and then that will ultimately roll into 1.29 to 1.5 for payroll with 15 staff members.
Yeah, so let me back up just a little bit. So you're correct that as part of the FY24 budget, the board approved $1.5 million for CFP funding to help offset. What you see, the 1.295 number is what's left because you've used some of that for your long lead items. So you've already funded those out of 1.5.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. The plan when we set the tax rate as part of the FY24 budget was to use the funding this year towards construction, and then the FY25 budget will have the funding moved over to operations to be able to provide for the salaries, fringe benefits, and station operation costs for the 15 personnel that we will be required to hire in order to fully staff the station.
So to chief, you probably looking at interviewing Q3 24, Q4 24 to be ready to put people in that building in 25.
We would actually start this spring with we already have a pool of 41 candidates from last spring's process. Your approval tonight will set the ball rolling to hire 12 firefighters and 3 battalion chiefs by July 1st. Those 12 firefighters will undergo a hire then train program. So we will train most of them from the ground up. We have a plan in place with Rowan, Cabarrus, and Harrisburg to do a fire academy and to do an EMT academy in January. And then we will do in-house training through 4.5 to get these firefighters trained for another county.
Just wanted to make one question. From start of construction till first fire truck rolls out of the building operating, what's that timeline look like?
Our goal is to turn the key January 1st, 2025.
Awesome. With that said, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize a total project budget of $9,060,529 for completion of development, construction, and uplift of Fire Station 3, including approval of the attached budget amendments totaling $6,652,296 as proposed, and also to authorize the town manager to contract with the Samet Corp for the construction phase of Fire Station 3 and give notice to proceed with construction, and to also authorize the town manager to contract with Stony Program Management to provide the owner's representative services through the commissioning, completion, and closeout of the Fire Station 3 project. Sorry. Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion from Member Tim McCool. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Hoover. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Go to the Fire Station.
Thank you very much, Council.
Well, comment on that. Well, just really thank goodness for our ARPA funding. That paid for a huge chunk of it, with a lot more people that not have that $7 million. Getting to this project. Move on to new business. Item 11A, consider facade grant application at 316 East Matthew Street. Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have had a facade grant program in place for more than a decade now here in Matthews. We budget for it every year, but applications come in fits. We don't have them that often. The particular one, of course, this evening is for the structure just around the corner from us here, adjacent to KP Park. It's 316 East Matthews Street, also known as the Thunderbird Plaxco House. It is a landmark constructed circa 1880. The Landmarks Commission believes it was actually originally built across the street and then moved to its current location, which is interesting. Our facade grant program was amended some years ago to allow grants after the fact. We had property owners that actually said, hey, I didn't know about the program. I've done this work recently. So the EDAC, John, many years ago, recalled, directed, and then we ultimately had the board approve an amendment that allow retroactive grants. So the work Thunderbird Plaxco is $12,750, primarily paint, some wood and rock repair. The grant request is $3,500. That is in keeping with the allowance for projects between $10,000 and $20,000. Also of note, you'll see in the applications that has at least 3 years has to elapse since the last grant, and the last grant year is in 2019. I did not, well, I had an excuse to walk out on a nice day, so these are not Google Street View. These are actual photos from the past week that just depict the work, and you can see that the home appears to have been freshly painted. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Jay, do you know how many facade grants we have given out ever? Approximately, we talked about this the other day. I don't think it's many, right?
Fewer than 20, probably 10 to 15. 6, 8. We've done the Reed House. We've done Paul Jameson's property at 500 West John Street.
Sundown Station's doors.
Sundown Station doors. That's a really good one. Those are like historic doors from an old building. And then the
Some Chevron.
Chevron.
Maybe another month.
Yeah, Temple's Edge. Temple's Edge redid their storefront. That was probably the most costly one. That was one of our first
I just want to make a comment that I believe this program, we haven't expended a lot of money on it, but it does encourage people to maintain the old historic look of our town. It'd be a lot cheaper just to throw vinyl siding or something on this building and not have to work that again, about pay $20,000 spending. So it's important that the public know why we do this is to encourage historic preservation, because these are often very expensive things to make it look like it used to be instead of throwing something new and cheaper up. there any comments, questions, motions?
I'm like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the side ramp for 316 East Matthew Street, in the amount of $3,500.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 11B, consider right-of-way acquisition for Crown Point Commons Drive extension. Yeah.
Yes, so last year, the board approved the conditional plan and notes for the what is now being called Crown Point Commons redevelopment that is along Sam Newell Road, Rice Road Extension, and current East Point Drive, which is currently be planned to be renamed Crown Point Commons Drive. The conditional notes in that part of that development that the board approved state that the developer is willing to make the connection just through the woods to Clare Drive. I'll show the map in just a moment. If and only if the town has acquired the right of way. So developers do not obviously have the ability to acquire right of way the same as municipality does. However, the town would still be required to reimburse them for that incremental cost. Pull the map here. So here's a player's map showing how helps the northern portion of the development. There's actually portions on both sides of Race Road Extension. This is existing Clare Drive. It stops just as scenic. It goes a little further. Kind of goes actually to right here, but there's not much pavement beyond that. So the developer will be extending public street kind of on this property line with Harley Davidson. You'll note that there's probably the strangest parcel in Matthews, or one of the strangest, that it starts with just a little bit of frontage on Sam Newell and then traces back and is maybe 7-ish feet wide. So this is the connectivity issue that was pointed out during the approval of the mixed use zoning. These are just the notes that state again that the applicant is willing to build that short segment of road and be reimbursed for it, but it would take care of it all at once. The road would be built and then connect to Clare Drive. There's a great benefit to that neighborhood. If you look at, I don't have a larger map, but this is the development plan here. Kind of along Clare Drive, Hayden Way. It's right in, right out access to 74. If you want to come into Matthews from the development, you have to go make a U-turn at an opening on 74, which when U-2509 is put in place, that U-turn will go away. You would then be driving Sardis Road North to a future interchange there if you want to simply come into Matthews. So this connection would give residents in the adjoining neighborhood safer access back into Matthews to not one but 2 traffic signals. So it is a valuable piece of future connectivity to the town. We're coming for you this evening to ask if the board has any interest in right-of-way acquisition, because to date, we've made several overtures to the property owner over the past, say, 2 years. The owner has not indicated interest in selling it for any monetary value. They've also expressed this to the developer. They do have some suggestions that they've suggested that they might be willing to part ways with it if there are changes to their conditional zoning, which put us in kind of an awkward place. So our ask this evening is for direction. Simply, is the board interested in acquiring this? Or would you simply rather let the property sit? I'm about to leave out one important part. I have to thank Public Works. They provided some very, very last minute helpful information to me as of this morning. So Public Works did a quick analysis and estimate on construction for the town to go in and build this 7-ish foot gap in the future would be about $38,000 in total construction costs. So the option is the town go in and acquire the property, developer goes and makes the connection, or would let the developer just build to their existing property line. The gap is there. The board from the town could come in and construct that last 7 feet at a time which we see fit. It's a nominal cost. There would be probably a barricade would be put up. There probably would be some ability for pedestrian and foot traffic, but it would remain a really frustrating street connection. You would be, let's see, what is like, this is an 8-foot table, I think, here. So it's going to be a really, really small street network gap.
Jay, how does a piece of property that shape get created in the first place?
So changed hands only, year, 2 years ago or less, when it was bought by the same owner, agency, Harley Davidson. But prior to that, the deed was 1975. So I don't know if it was, it looks like maybe a spike strip. That somebody was trying to stop someone from doing something or any kind of connection from happening. But I couldn't tell you.
It would be my suggestion for the benefit and quality of life of our residents that we go ahead and purchase it. Be prepared to go to the room. Mr. Garner?
But, okay, the incremental cost you're talking about is that, 38,000 estimated that gets reimbursed.
The developer can probably build it cheaper, so 26 was your first number, but even less than.
But that's what they would want reimbursement for, not for the road plus the road gap that's there and on their property.
Right, it's just just take their cost of building that section of public street and then just do the incremental and that's whatever that 7 feet is. But again, the applicant or the owner of that parcel has not indicated to us over more than 2 years now that they are willing to sell it to us. So they're not a willing seller. That's why we're coming before you this evening.
My next question is when the Hayden, Kinger Homes Hayden rezoning went through, maybe this is up to the board to recall, but the neighborhood didn't seem to want that connectivity through. And I know that we have to think about the broader community, but I want to bring that up. Maybe I'm misremembering, but that was sort of the impression that I got.
I do think we would want to have a conversation with the neighborhood because they're, I think if I lived there and gave me the opportunity to have access to traffic signals, we have to drive into the town and not have to rely on 74. And again, that's the only thing people there have known for decades. So maybe they're comfortable with it, but just looking on the horizon at 2509, that it's going to become far more difficult, to access this neighborhood.
I sat at the light of Sam Newell on Independence Day for what seemed like 8 minutes or something. I'm sure it wasn't that long, but it's terrible. Really long. Like, all right. What's the will of the other people that are elected in our town? We want to encourage some maybe meetings with the neighborhood to see if they're feeling against it or whatever. Mr. Spano, agree with that. So maybe before we do anything, let's get the temperature of the adjoining neighborhood. Is that good?
Sure. Happy to do that.
Okay. Right, Dave?
I think that's what I need. Thank you.
All right. Thank you much. We'll move on to the next item, which comes up our consent agenda. Commissioner Spano has taken off and accept zoning application 2023-791 text amendment to revise section 156-506-1B6 regarding home-based businesses to allow employees that do not reside in the home to engage in business there and set a public hearing on January 13, 2024. Zoning application requests like this are typically put on our consent agenda, but Commissioner Spano, you got a concern about them?
Yes, thank you. I'm perfectly fine with having employees at the workplace. However, they're with the caveat that the workplace be the primary residence of the business owner. In other words, if that caveat were not in place, then their home could be simply purchased and made into a home business, and employees would be there, and then it would just be a circumvention of the commercial business requirement. So simply put, I'm more than happy to accept this application with the caveat that the residents be the primary residence of the business owner.
So what do you do with that? You have to go back to the person that's requesting the zoning, or?
So anyone can submit a text amendment at any time. It's not anything that the board necessarily sees fit to approve. I can take that on advisement and pass that information along to the applicant. But
We're gonna have to vote on them.
yeah,
If they don't change it. we can vote on it.
I mean, Charlie, I'm not aware of us, I don't think we have any ability not to accept it or accept it on condition. Still has to go through our public hearing process. But I can pass that along to you.
From what I'm hearing, it sounds like you just notify the applicant that there's going to be a change in the text before you. Before the public hearing. Correct.
Yeah, he's gonna have to, he already needs to look at revisions based
Yes.
on comments. even.
I think that's what I'm hearing, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that being said, do we want to accept this or accept it and do what's the proper verbiage?
But we go ahead and accept it and call for a public hearing to be January 13th, 2024.
That date's incorrect, it should be the 8th. Sorry.
With Jay passing on all the information.
Yes, and the applicant will resubmit the application with the stipulation that the place of business is also the primary residence.
Yeah, so the application will remain the same, but we will advise them that the text in the application should be, that you've provided this feedback, that they should consider those revisions before it comes back to this board at public hearing.
Can they not, this question for Charles, can they modify the text amendment prior to the next meeting?
It's going to have to be posted in the newspaper with this is written down.
Okay.
Right, Commissioner Cavano, I think you brought up a good point. We can reinforce that when we hear. I think it's their own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a motion.
Well, since I'm the one who brought it up, I'll go ahead and make the motion. That we accept the zoning application 2023-791. And that it be brought up at the public hearing on, what was the date of January 8th, 2024.
Second by Commissioner Garner. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That's a good point, Commissioner Cavano. All right, move on to the mayor's report. Got a couple items. Today I had the opportunity to join some of our Indian community and the Charlotte BAPS Commander for their involvement celebration, and I'm joined by Mayor Rusty Knotts from Davidson and Mayor Mary Holloway from Monroe. Several other people there. Very nice, very positive way to kick off the holiday season. We've got Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas coming up. Always care about the holidays. It's a nice celebration. I also wanted to touch, just make a comment about the election that we just had. Our election kind of devolved into two factions, and the public has spoken, and they said, hey, we kind of like the people that are currently serving. So all incumbents got reelected. With the addition of Mr. Leon Freed, who will take Dr. Whitley's place. So election, all incumbents got reelected. I did note that the school bonds passed, so I'm very happy to see that. So that means that we will have the opportunity, hopefully, to rebuild Matthews Elementary in the very near future. That's all I have for the mayor's report. County attorney's report. No report, Mayor. Town manager report.
No.
Right, we're gonna go into item.
Six, it's item 16.
Okay, we're gonna, go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3, discuss matters relating to attorney-client privilege. Okay. Can we consider economic development? No, it's okay. To include the mayor, the board of commissioners, the town attorney, town manager, assistant town manager, and the town clerk. and Attorney Daniel Peterson.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Urban, all in favor?